Hey everybody, welcome to my kitchen. I'm Amy from Neurotic Mom Bakes, and I have showed you how to doctor a cake mix, but today I'm going to show you how to doctor a boxed brownie mix. Now, I gotta say that my made from scratch brownie recipe is my favorite. I think it's hands down the best, but boxed recipes can be really good, especially if you're in a hurry to make something. So I'm just gonna show you though that if you swap out a few ingredients and add a couple ingredients, that you're gonna take this box brownie mix from just, basic box mix, and you're gonna elevate it so it just tastes a little bit better texture. And we're gonna compare. I'm gonna compare the regular box mix to the doctored box mix. So it's gonna be fun. Now this recipe calls for a 13 by 9 family size, so that's what I've got here. However, this does not mean that you have to bake it in a 13 by 9. If you want a thicker brownie, you can definitely put this in a square pan, an 8 by 8 or a 9 by 9. Just know that it will take a considerable more amount of time to bake, because it's a lot thicker. But we're gonna stick to what it calls for. So I've got my greased and lined with parchment 9 by 13 here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and put the mix in. I've preheated my oven. According to the directions, it's 350 degrees. Now, first thing, it calls for 2 eggs. I'm gonna go ahead and add 3. Now, this creates a little bit lighter texture, slightly more cake-like, which some people prefer. But if you don't like that, go ahead and just stick with the amount of eggs that it calls for. But we will still bump up the flavor regardless. This just adds a little to the rise and to the texture. Now, instead of the oil, this calls for a 1/2 cup of oil, I'm going to add butter instead. I'm going to melt a 1/2 cup of butter and use that as a substitution. And then for the water, I'm going to use, you can either use milk or cream. I'm gonna go ahead and just use milk today. It calls for 1/3 cup of water, so I'm gonna use 1/3 cup of milk. And then the additions that I'm going to make, I'm gonna add some vanilla, and I'm going to add some chocolate chunks. You can add a chopped up Hershey bar. I have C's chocolate chips here. You can add any kind of chocolate chips that you want. And if you wanted to experiment with flavors, you could add like peppermint extract and some chopped up grasshopper cookies. Do that, lots of possibilities. Let me get my whisk out. I'm gonna add my chocolate chunks later. I'm gonna mix this up with about a teaspoon of vanilla. And as with all brownie mixes, you don't want to overmix, so I'm just going to gently start. I start out with the whisk because I like to get those eggs kind of broken up, and that's harder to do with the spatula. Well, maybe I won't finish with the spatula just to make sure I get everything folded in. At this point, I'm going to add my chocolate pieces, like about a cup or so. And as soon as I stop seeing streaks of the dry mix or any of the egg, kind of the egg white kind of hanging out in there, then I'm ready to pour it into my pan. Let me get my spatula. All right, let's spread this out in the pan. It is so much easier to get brownies out of the pan if you line it with some parchment, because after they're cooled, you can just lift it right out to cut up. So I always try to line my pans with parchment on any bar recipe that I make. Okay, into the oven according to directions. This says 20 to 23 minutes. You never want to overcook brownies, so I will actually start less than the recommended. I'm gonna start with 18 because once they're overcooked, then they're just dry. They're ruined. Okay, I'm back with our finished brownies. Now, like I said, if you're going to err on baking time, err on the side of being slightly underdone. When you stick a toothpick in the center, it should not come out clean. If it comes out clean, that means it's perfect doneness right there, but the rest of it's gonna be too hard and too dry. So you wanna pull it out and it still has a little bit, not wet, not super wet, but a little bit of that batter on there. Okay, I have to show you the difference here. So I previously made an undoctored, just regular box mix, and they're great, they're good. They're gonna taste really good, but the difference between the two is just quite stark. I mean, you can just see this is, you can see the chocolate chunks in there, first of all. It's like a thicker brownie, but it doesn't taste super cake-like. I know that people worry about that if you add too many eggs. I don't think it does. We'll give it a taste test. I've already tasted them, but they're really good. But this just bumps up the flavor a little and bumps up the texture a little bit. So let's test out just the regular box brownie mix first. And what brand did I use? Duncan Hines. See, now that is a good brownie. Let's try out the doctored one. Okay. The differences I noticed right off the bat is this one definitely has a richer, more chocolatey flavor. And obviously that's because we added some chocolate. But with that milk and using the butter, it's just a different texture, a different feel in your mouth. It doesn't taste cake-like. It's still fudgy, it's still chewy, but the flavor is just a little bit more rich, and it's really good. So if you're needing or wanting to make a box mix, but you just want to do a couple simple swaps, it's not going to take you any extra amount of time. This is going to take your basic box brownie and bump it up to a higher level. So that is really, really good. So give this one a try. Let me know what you think. And if you want to see more tutorials and recipes like this one, just please subscribe to my channel and I'll see you next time. In case you haven't heard, I have created online cake decorating courses, 50 videos divided into 4 parts, and it's by far the best value out there. So make sure to check the link in the description, and I do add courses periodically. If you would like my free ebook with my top 10 cake and buttercream recipes, make sure you sign up for my newsletter. The link is below.